If we want to live our lives with more enjoyment and more happiness, that does not come from our external world, that comes from the way that we relate to it. Oh my god. I have not posted a YouTube video in almost, if not over a year at this point. It's fun to be back. Hello guys, my name is Alexa. Welcome back to my channel. I go by Alexa the Alchemy here on YouTube and on Instagram. I am a life coach. I focus on predominantly self-love and learning how to navigate life's many changes. So I wanted to share 5 tools of how you can shift your own narrative about your life, your situation, so that you can have a more positive outlook on things and move forward in your life without feeling like you are stuck or hating what's going on around you. In large part, we cannot control anything about our reality. We also control everything about our reality. So it's important to realize that when we're looking at different situations in our life, the perspective that we're coming at them from really affects how we're actually going to interpret those events, and in turn affects what we experience our life to be. If we want to live our lives with more enjoyment and more happiness, that does not come from our external world, that comes from the way that we relate to it. The reason I'm so passionate about this is because I have been in situations where my life on the outside looked absolutely phenomenal, but my inner experience was that it was horrible, I was the victim, I was sad, I was depressed. Whatever the narrative was, it made that really beautiful experience feel lesser than it could have been. Now, of course, we do not want to gaslight ourselves or gaslight our own experiences, and we don't want to shove things under the rug, so I'm definitely not recommending that you do that with your lives, but I do want to share things that have helped me along my journey to have a little bit more gratitude for the hardest or the worst case scenarios. The first tip that I have is actually encouraging you to sort of step out of the state of mind that you are in saying, I am the victim, this is happening to me, blah, 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 and ask yourself, what do I perceive is happening to me? This question is incredibly important because it's not saying this is not what's happening. It's just asking you to explore, what's my perception of this? Am I perceiving myself as being the victim? Am I perceiving this as being a terrible situation? And it may be that that is the case. The nature of life is that there is duality. There's good and bad in everything. There's light and dark. There's always 2 different ways or more of seeing the same thing. So it's asking you to just take a step back to acknowledge, is this the narrative that serves you? And sometimes it is. Sometimes it does serve us to say, wow, this is kind of a shitty situation. I'd like to get out of this. That being said, in order to detach from the situation, we have to understand what the lens is that we are carrying when we are looking at said thing. If you haven't already taken a peek into the works of Stoics, I highly recommend it. Stoicism is a phenomenal tool for allowing yourself to sort of detach from the experience enough so that you can have a different vantage point. The point is not so that you can detach from it so much that you're going to become a sociopath or ignore the feelings, emotions, etc. of the people around you. It's to detach enough so that you can see, is there maybe a different narrative that I could have about this, or a different way that I could approach this, and then lasering in on what narrative it is that's going to serve you the best. The second tip that I have is an immediate follow-up to that first tip, and that is to then ask the question, what are 3 ways that this is actually happening for me? Your brain might really try to fight this, especially if this is something that you're new to and says, this is all bad, there's nothing good in this. But the more that you really start to dive into, okay, well, how could this be good for me? It's likely that this may lead you to a place where you see not everything is black and white, not everything is all good and bad. So even the things that have bad do come with a little bit of good. The third tip that I have for you is actually asking you to take this experience and apply it to your daily life, even if it doesn't pertain to one specific situation. And the way that I recommend doing this is through a practice of daily gratitudes. Every single day when you wake up, write down at least 5 to 10 things that you are grateful for. Try to pick something new at least every single day. These can be the smallest and simplest of things. Could also be something on a larger scale. When you start your brain off wired to look for the good things, those things are going to start to show up more often. My 4th tip is to start using the word and a lot more than you use the word but. There are so many situations in our lives when we can say, oh, this is great, but, and then we almost completely negate everything that we just said. What we're doing when we say but is we're saying that 2 things cannot exist at the same time. When we say and, we allow there to be 2 different truths, or we allow duality to exist, which is the nature of life. This is something that I especially find useful in dealing with my relationships to other people. As an example, it can be really helpful to start training the brain to say, I love you and whatever it may be. I love you and this is really challenging. I love you and I don't know if I want to do this. I love you and can you please help me with the dishes? When we start to accept that duality is a thing that exists, it enables our brain to sort of rewire itself to see that multiple things can be true at the same time. Which in turn, when we look at an event that's really challenging for us, instead of saying, oh, well, this must mean that they don't love me, or this must mean that I'm not good enough, or this must mean that blah, 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 your brain is already in a state where it's kind of wired to say, well, this happened and maybe there's a different meaning, or this happened and maybe something else can also happen. So really training your brain anytime you say the word but to say, can I say the word and instead? The fifth and final tip that I have is learning how to distinguish your emotions and your feelings from your thoughts. Humans experience emotions much more quickly than we actually think. It takes about 7 seconds for us to process an emotion. 7 seconds is not a whole lot of time. So if we have a debilitating fear of being angry, sometimes it can be helpful to recognize if I let myself get angry, that feeling may only last for 7 seconds. The thing that lingers is the narratives and the thoughts that come as a result of that emotion. I took a 6-month relationship anxiety course with the Anxious Love Coach, and they talked a lot about the importance of what's called nonviolent communication. One of the biggest takeaways that I had from this is realizing how important it is to distinguish between the words I feel and I have a thought that. If you tell someone, I feel like you don't care, that can come off really aggressive, really harshly, and realistically what's happening is that you feel, let's say, lonely, or you feel abandoned, or you feel confused. And as a result of that feeling, of that emotion, you have a thought that someone doesn't care about you. You don't care about me is not a feeling, that is not an emotion. If you look at an emotion wheel, neglect is. So really learning to identify what is the thing that I'm feeling, and because I'm feeling that, what is the thought process? What is that feeling, that emotion feeding up into my brain? And how is my brain interpreting everything that's going on below the neck? That is gonna give us a really good roadmap to understand what it is that we're telling ourselves and what our actual narrative is. When we are better able to understand what the narrative is, we're better able to disarm it and to therefore rewire the brain and to shift those narratives to serve us in a better way so that we can show up better for ourselves and for our relationships. When it comes to challenging our beliefs and our narratives, I also really like to recommend the work of Byron Katie. She has a 4-step process of self-inquiry that I have found to be completely life-changing. Once you understand the narrative, for example, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, this person doesn't love me, etc., ask yourself the following 4 questions. 1. Is it true? 2. Can I absolutely know that it is true? 3. How do I react when I believe this thought? And finally, number 4, who would I be without the thought? If we want to change our lives, the goal is not to look at how do we change the things around us so that our inner experience can change. The goal is to say, how can I shift my inner experience and my relationship to the outer world? So as a quick recap, first tip, ask yourself, what do I perceive is happening to me? The second tip is ask yourself, for any situation that's challenging, what are 3 ways that this could be happening for me? The third tip is to start a daily practice of gratitudes and to acknowledge at least 5 to 10 things every single day that you are grateful to have. Fourth point, replacing the word but with the word and as often as possible and learning how to accept the prevalence of duality in this life. And the fifth and final tip, learning how to have nonviolent communication and to view our thoughts with a little bit less conviction and a little bit more curiosity. There are, of course, so many other tools, but I wanted to name off these top 5 that have really helped me the most in the last year of my life. If you found this helpful, please let me know below, drop in the comments or shoot me a message as to which one of these tips resonated the most with you. And I would love it if you would thumbs up this video so that I know that the content is helpful for you. I'll be posting videos regularly again about how to shift your life, your mindset, your narratives, and to enjoy a little bit more self-love and a little bit more joy in your day-to-day experience. P.S. Also a subtle plug, I'll be hosting a retreat in Bali this December the 2nd through the 9th, 2022. So if you really want to dive into this work and find more self-love, more excitement for your life, more joy, more happiness, more fun, definitely shoot me a message so that I can get you the information because I would love to have you come out to groove with us. And I'm not joking about that because I will be leading shuffling workshops as well. And we'll be drinking cacao. All right. Peace.